Hello, and welcome to today's webinar, EMWA's Outreach for its Freelance Members, Activities and Resources by Satyen Shenoy and organized by EMWA. My name is Carolina Rojido, and I will be your moderator today. As you know, it is not possible to provide a 100% stable internet connection. So if for any reason the presentation needs to be canceled by the organizers, that's us, a notification email will be sent as soon as possible. Before we get started, we'll take a moment to ensure that everyone is familiar with the webinar control panel. You can submit questions through it using the questions or chat panels located near the bottom of your little panel. We will collect them throughout the webinar, and Satyen will be answering them after his presentation. We are recording today's session, and we will make the link to the recording available in the EMWA webinars archive area of our website, and also in the public area, because this one is open to non-members. Now it's over to you, Satyen.
All right, thank you very much, Carolina. So hello everybody, and welcome to today's webinar. I'm Satyen Shenoy. I'm a freelance medical writer based in Germany. I started my medical writing career in 2010, so about 8 years back. Before that, I spent a number of years in the academia and the industry working on research projects. I joined EMWA in 2011 as a member, and in 2016 I had the opportunity to volunteer for EMWA's Freelance Business Group. Presently I am the chair of the Freelance Business Group subcommittee, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And it's my pleasure today to speak to you about EMWA's outreach for its freelance members. Before we proceed any further, I think what I would like to get is an idea on the professional demographic of our attendees. I believe at the moment we have about 38, minus the 3 of the organizers, so 35 attendees. So what I'd like to do is run this small poll. So I've got a simple question with about 4 choices, which I request once Carolina starts the poll, if you can just click on the right, on the most appropriate option. And we'll just take a look at where we are from and what our background is. Carolina, you started it?
Yes, I have launched it, Satyen, and they're answering. I'm sorry, I was muted.
Oh.
And so far 91%, 94%.
Yeah, so we have almost everybody.
So we give them a minute. Yeah, there's no more change. So I'll close it. And we'll see the results.
Interesting. So we have about a quarter of the attendees today are not EMWA members, and about 75, or what's that, about 72% who are EMWA members, and almost half of us are freelancers as well. So great, that's fabulous to know.
I'm going to take it out. There you go.
Poll's closed? Okay.
Yes.
All right. So the reason to know this is when I was going to do this webinar and planning on what I should talk about, I also factored it that quite a few of us might not be EMWA members, or may not even be freelancers, or may not even be medical writers. And so I kind of geared this whole presentation taking into consideration that we probably need to give some more information on EMWA and what EMWA is all about before we even get into the freelancing stuff. So I think This is how today's webinar will run. I will quickly go through an introduction to EMWA and the member benefits. We will then go on to the Freelance Business Group subcommittee and the activities that fall under our purview. I'll talk a bit about freelancer benefits that EMWA offers to its members, some conclusions and acknowledgements, and then we'll take questions. I request you all to wait till the Q&A if you have any questions, simply because there's a possibility that some of your answers might be there in course of the presentation itself. Having said that, even before getting into what is EMWA, I think I would like to briefly talk about what's medical writing, because it's not as such a profession that's widely known, and different people have stumbled into it in a myriad of ways. So what do medical writers do? We basically are involved with drafting documents of various shades and various types and for various purposes. For example, let me say, most of us are probably familiar with articles that are published in scientific journals. Now, if you're from academia, you probably write these yourself, given the financial crunch or not having enough money or so. I certainly did it when I was in academia. But in the industry or with CROs or medcom agencies, these are done by either in-house medical writing teams or by freelancers like myself. We draft a range of different documents, anything from manuscripts for publication to regulatory documents to patient advocacy, patient information groups, and things like that. So as you can see, the output's quite varied. And of course, for each of those, we need different skill sets. But what's common for most medical writers is a sort of a background in the sciences, and of course, proficiency in writing or in languages. So what is EMWA then? Well, the European Medical Writers Association, it's a network of professionals that represents, supports and trains medical communicators in Europe and outside. It's a not-for-profit organization, and it's run for its members, by its members, and I'm highlighted by its members. And what I want to convey here is that the whole running of EMWA, from administration to its daily activities and stuff like that, is largely carried out by volunteers who are EMWA members. Now, EMWA is freelancing, medical writing itself as a profession is growing quite rapidly, and with it, so is EMWA. So at present, we have about 1,000 members from 39 countries, including 12 outside of Europe. Now, when we were looking at where everybody who's attending today is from, we discovered yesterday that we had participants coming in from Korea to Canada. So that's quite diverse, I would say. It spans half the globe. And that's because I think EMWA has a lot to offer its members. What are some of these offers? First is training and professional development. Now, this perhaps I can explain very simply by saying that medical writing is not, it's largely an acquired skill. It's not something that you can have didactic learning on in universities. You're not going to have bachelor's degrees or masters in medical writing, though a couple of universities now here in Europe are learning that and are offering master's programs, I think, in medical communications. So it's something, it's a skill that you develop as you grow into it. You learn on the job. And for most medical writers, especially those who want to transition from other fields into medical writing, one of the best things to do is to be with an organization like EMWA, which then offers workshops at its conferences for training you for professional development. Networking opportunities. As a professional, you always want to be talking to other professionals in the same field or in associated fields, so you get to learn from their experiences, you get to network with them, and that's something that EMWA offers at its conferences as well as online. We have a pretty strong presence on LinkedIn, where there are those who want to get into medical writing can contact other medical writers who are in the field and build their professional networks. Professional association. So especially for me as a freelancer, when I talk to prospective clients, quite often I'm asked if I belong to EMWA or so, but when they look at my LinkedIn page, they probably can see that, I have been pretty active there. It always looks good on the CV when you are associated with an organization such as EMWA if you want a career in medical writing. There's a members only section on the website, and I'll show you give you the link. Most of you perhaps have been there already. And what does this members only section do? We'll get into it in the later part of the talk. Enhanced learning via the annual symposium and expert seminar series. Now, these programs are offered only during the spring conference, which is the larger of the two every year. They are fairly new, and they've been designed keeping in mind that those who have been in medical writing for in this profession for quite some time need to be aware and keep themselves abreast of the latest developments. For example, let me say in the last few years, the field of medical devices has been up and coming. So pretty much a lot of regulatory writers want to get to know on what the different guidelines are or how to handle the different changes that are being recommended by the EMA. And that's what the annual symposium and expert seminar series is designed to handle. I must point out here that these two programs are not exclusive for members. Non-members can also participate in these. And of course, these are for extra cost to non-members. And last but not least, volunteering opportunities. Now, why is this important? It teaches you a lot of things, especially your people skills. When you are a freelancer like I am, you perhaps do not get a chance to speak to another professional for quite some time. We work out of our little home offices and some such. And when you do this volunteering things, you kind of learn how to build a team, how to work with a team. And it's one small way of giving back to the profession that you are perhaps enjoying. Come the next conference in Warsaw in November, I will be a volunteer as a workshop leader for the first time. Last year or so, I've done a fair bit of regulatory writing, and I thought I could offer a workshop on a particular regulatory document. So that's my way of giving back to other medical writers who want to know more about this kind of writing. So switching tracks here, or before that, we'll just take a look real quick at the EMWA website. This is how it looks like. As you can see, you have a huge menu there for you to peruse through. And once you're done with this talk, if you are at any point when you have time, just take a look at it, and you'll see what I mean by saying that EMWA has a lot to offer its members. So now we come to the main meat of this discussion, this webinar today, which is freelancers. Now, why does EMWA bother to even have anything going on for freelancers? Well, approximately 1/3 of EMWA's members are freelancers. So there's about 300 of us. This is an unofficial count. We do not have the actual figures because it tends to be quite fluid. People move in and out of freelancing. It's something that some people choose, some medical writers, based on what their personal needs are. For example, somebody going on maternity cover or so can only work for a limited number of hours, can rather opt to go for freelancing for a short period and then go back into employment. So there's no fixed number I can give you, but the ballpark figure, it's about 1/3. So obviously that's a sizable amount of number of people who are involved in freelance medical writing. Freelancers play a very substantial role in running off EMWA. Of course, everybody thinks we have plenty of time on our hands, so we are free to volunteer it as we see fit. And some of the roles that freelancers have played in the past have been being involved with the executive committee, which has been shortened to EC here. Past presidents of EMWA have been freelancers. Those who are involved in special interest groups, especially kind of for pharmacovigilance, and some such workshop leaders or have been freelancers and volunteers. So us freelancers, we occupy a huge role in how EMWA is being run. And so last year, the executive committee thought that given the number of activities and programs that can be run under the aegis of Freelance Business Group, that it would be only better to form a subcommittee. So we invited people to join in. I was already on board and we got some more members. So now we have a team of about 5 people and it's a fantastic team to work with. And here is the Freelance Business Group subcommittee. So you see we're fairly come with very different backgrounds, each of us, some from academia, some from industry. There's Laura from Switzerland, Alison and George based in the UK, and Caroline and myself in Germany. So what are these activities that we do? Well, I'll just give a quick list and then we'll get into the details of each of these in the subsequent slides. One is organizing the Freelance Business Forum at EMWA conferences. Now I see that there's 42% of us who are freelancers and EMWA members. I'm sure you have stumbled across the Freelance Business Forum at a conference that you have visited. And it's a very lively event, and I'll talk more about it in the next slide, I think. The other thing is medical writing is also the name of EMWA's journal, which is a quarterly publication. And one of the sections of medical writing is called Out on Our Own. Now, this is a dedicated section for freelance issues. And we, especially Laura, is the one who is the editor right now. I used to do it till about the last issue. We manage and coordinate this section of medical writing. We also conduct the Freelance Business Survey every 3 years, something I'll talk more on in the coming slides. And we also liaise with the EC on any matters that are relevant to the freelance business. So we kind of act as the intermediaries between the EC and our freelancing members. If there are any concerns, if there are any issues, then they approach us and then we take this up with the EC. Freelance Business Forum, it's one of my favorite activities because, as I said, working as a freelancer from your home office can get to be a very lonely job at times. And the FBF is where you get to hang out with freelancers from everywhere, have a lovely time, and have a lovely chat. Here you see in this action photo, this was taken in Barcelona earlier this year. This is a table discussion session during the FBF. So what is the Freelance Business Forum? It's a networking event that's conducted at every EMWA conference. So the 2 conferences, May and November, at both of these we have the FBFs. It's open to all EMWA members, and you can perhaps understand why this is so. There are many who are presently having a job but are considering moving into freelancing. And they would like to know what it's all about, how it feels to be a freelancer, what are the things they need to do to be a freelancer. And this is where they come and they talk with others to get tips and ideas on how to proceed. So it's open to all EMWA members. It's a 1.5-hour program. So it's a fairly nice, lovely time. It is always held in the evenings, so it does not clash with the workshop timings. And it's always before the social events happen in the evening. So it's nice bridging between unwinding completely and learning throughout the day. And the way the FBF is held is we've been trying the last few FBFs and it's worked pretty nicely. So we have a guest speaker who comes and talks on some facet of freelancing for about 20-25 minutes or so. And then we dedicate the larger part of the forum for table discussions. Now, as you see here, what we do essentially is break the whole congregation into smaller groups on smaller tables with a pre-chosen topic that they get to discuss. They can talk about anything. And the main goal of this table discussion is so that everybody gets to participate. So it's not like sitting down and listening to somebody drone on at the fag end of the day. It's more about you participating and interacting with other freelancers, getting to know them, getting to make friendships, getting to learn various tips of the trade, and some such. And perhaps, yes, so that's why the Freelance Business Forum is one of my favorite activities. And yes, it's an excellent opportunity to meet and interact with other EMWA members. Going on to the journal now, out on our own. As I said, it's a dedicated section in medical writing that is always, all articles are by freelancers. We invite others to submit their experiences and some such. The advantage of putting anything in medical writing is it's a journal now that is indexed in Scopus and Google Scholar and other databases. So anyone who publishes in there kind of can also get their name in these databases and is searchable. So it's something that you can add on your CV as well. Again, the Outer Own is a dedicated section, and it features articles on tips and tricks and business management and personal stories. So people who have started their businesses in different places. And I mean, if I'm not mistaken, there was an article by someone who is a medical writer but sails around the world with a family, and that's kind of neat, I think. If you feel like you can contribute an article, if you're a freelancer and if you've got something to share with us, then I would invite you to write to Laura. Her email address is given here. And yeah, do drop her a line. She would love it. And we'd be more than glad to publish your article. Freelance Directory. Now, one thing freelancers realize is that we are also businessmen or business people, maybe politically correct. We run our own businesses, and one of the things for a business to be successful is advertising yourself. Various ways are there now for us how to do this. What some of the ways are: you have a LinkedIn profile, for example, you have your own website, and that all works fine. You also have an opportunity as a member to subscribe to advertising on the Freelance Directory, which is on EMWA's website. So this is one place potential clients could come and look at the directory and look for either somebody of a particular, with a particular skill or a particular country, as is all given here. You can see that there's a country list, or you can just put in the name of a person you're trying to track who can perhaps work for you, or for certain skills and services. If you need somebody to work on a CSR, for example, who's based in Germany, then you just enter it in the search engine and carry on. Freelance Resource Center. Now, this is something, again, which is quite useful for those who are just entering into freelancing. And I'll explain how this is. The Freelance Resource Center is basically a repository of links and articles and templates and guidelines and some such things that are very useful and helpful when you are a freelance medical writer. So by articles, I mean those that have been published in the previous issues of medical writing. These are all categorized into different sections, into different topics. As you can perhaps read from this little screenshot, you can have articles on regulatory writing or advice on how to run your business, or technical advice on softwares and computers and things like that. Basically, this is a fabulous repository. At least I found it so. And that's because 3 years back, when in 2015 I was starting my freelance consultancy here in Germany, I had not a clue on how to proceed. And I started actually in 2014 looking for how to go about this. And one of the things, I mean, I wrote to Alistair Reeves, who was at that time in charge of the Freelance Business Group. And I asked him, you know, can you give me an idea on how this is, how I can do it? He said, you know what, go to the Freelance Resource Center, look for these articles. And lo and behold, yes, I found articles that kind of listed what are the important things to consider before you start your freelancing business in Germany. Of course, I had to run through more hoops because of not being an EU citizen, and but that was all fun and games. And yes, but it helped me a lot to plan my transition from being an employed person to starting my own consultancy in Germany. So yes, I presume that many other freelancers have also found this resource quite helpful. Again, this is a screenshot on how the Freelance Resource Center is organized. Professional Development Program. Now this, again, is open to all EMWA members, whether you're employed or freelancers. What I would like to touch on today is how and why this is important to freelancers. When I started freelancing about 3 years ago, when I started medical writing, I did mostly manuscripts. I had a pharmaceutical client, a company that was involved in quite a bit of research. And what I was doing was essentially writing manuscripts for them, occasionally perhaps conference abstracts and some such. But overall, I wanted to kind of increase my the range of services that I could provide. And one of the ways I could do that, and that's every time I approach a client saying, you know what, I would like a chance to do some regulatory writing. They'll say, have you got any experience? When I would say no, that would always end up as like, sorry, we're looking for somebody who's got some experience. Well, one way to do that is to get knowledge about the different kinds of writings out there. So which is where the EMWA Professional Development Program, it's geared for it. So it provides high quality training through workshops that are held at every conference. So we got about 120 different workshops at the 2 conferences every year. And you can pick and choose which one you want. They span all areas of medical writing. For example, if you're from the academia or a biological background, but you do not have much idea on how clinical development process works, for example, clinical trials, you have workshops running on those. If you do not know how to write a CSR but are interested in getting into regulatory writing, well, you have workshops for those as well. You may just be writing manuscripts and happy with that, but then you also have workshops on how to improve yourself. And all this is helpful to a freelancer because this field, it's all about improving all the time. And yeah, so the professional development program is very helpful for freelancers to add on more services to the list of services they provide. Here, for example, what we are doing today is a webinar series for online training. It's also a part of the PDP. And how is this? I mean, today's webinar is open to everybody, members and non-members. But generally, there are also webinars that are held on specialized topics, which are accessible and can be attended to only by those who are members. Of course, the Symposium Expert Seminar Series, as I mentioned earlier, so this all constitutes part of the PDP on EMWA's part. Freelance Business Survey. Now, this is something that has been conducted every 3 years since 2003. The impetus behind running the FBS is quite simple. I mean, if we are business people, we need to have a finger on the pulse of how the business is running. So the FBS allows us to gauge what are the various practices that are prevalent at the time of carrying out the survey. And I'll perhaps give you some ideas. I have got some data coming in the next few slides. Again, this is open to members and non-members. The more number of people we have, the more accurate the picture is. We'll be running a survey very shortly, I believe in the next 2 months or so. Since the last survey, as you see, the one that's published here, the one with the screenshot was in 2015. So we are right for the next one, the 6th EMWA survey. And I would like to ask you at this point, to all the freelancers here, and who are either EMWA members or not, when you see the link, do get online, do participate, do send in your responses. So here's some of the interesting data. When we think freelancers, oh yeah, we probably not work as much, we have lots of leisure time. No, if you look at the data, most freelancers do work pretty steady hours, and some perhaps even qualify as over 50 hours, which is something what I do perhaps. Yeah, so we have regular work hours. Where do we get most of our work from? And here you see it's medical communication agencies that are responsible for almost half of the work that freelancers get. And there are some others which are perhaps not even worth bothering following up, even if they advertise. Another important statistic, what do you charge your client? When you have a client approaches you and says, okay, I want you to write a CSR for me, and what would your charges be like? So here you have in this table, it's broken down by the kind of writing that you do, whether it's medcoms or it's regulatory writing, or if it's just plain editing, even translation or so. And it gives you the median rates that are being charged by the participants. So this is very helpful again, isn't it? That because on one hand, you don't want to lose a client because you've asked for an arm and a leg. And on the other hand, you do not want to end up working for about 100 hours and then getting something which you think is paltry. So this is why I think that the results from the Freelance Business Survey help freelancers with their businesses. Association memberships. Now, this is something, again, not fairly mainstream, but we've been trying to do. Thing to keep in mind is EMWA helps freelance medical writers develop professionally, so largely in training and networking and some such. But when you are freelancing, it's also a business. So there are other aspects of business which you perhaps cannot be covered under EMWA. For example, what are the local freelancing laws? Number of hours that you can work, number of clients you can have, and some interesting snippets that I found out that in Germany, if you're freelancing, for example, you cannot have more than 80% of your annual income from one client, because that comes under the premise of false employment. So these are some regional rules, local, national rules that you cannot do anything about. So what EMWA tries to do, what we try to do is have understandings with the association, with associations in countries. So we try and form this kind of understandings where we have discounted memberships for our members. And I think I can perhaps explain this better for those who are based in the UK, if you may have heard of IPSI. So, I mean, this is a huge organization with about 67,000 freelancers, not necessarily all medical writers. So basically, it's a large organization and it's able to provide various services for their members. And how do we promote this as EMWA? Well, you get 15% discount on the first year membership for IPSI. At present, we have only two such association memberships on offer. One is for IPSI in the UK, and the other one is the VGSD. It's another equivalent organization in Germany. So if you're based in a country which has a similar freelance advocacy organization, which you think would benefit our members, then you're more than welcome to write to us, and we'll see if we can strike a similar understanding with them. And numerous other benefits that are available to members, discounts and offers on things such as books and softwares and insurance and some such. When you are a member, you of course get to see what these offers are and avail of them if they're useful to you. So coming to the conclusions, as I said, freelance medical writing as a profession is rapidly growing. In the last few years, if I remember correctly, from what I have seen, what I've heard, in the past, it used to be that freelancers were usually people who had a number of years of experience in the industry and then just wanted to take it easy, and have more time for themselves would go into freelancing, but it's not so anymore. We have a lot of people who are just coming fresh out of academia and who, before they even get a job or so, they'd say, okay, in the meantime, I can go freelance. So freelancing is becoming quite attractive to a number of people, and the number of freelancers is growing steadily. And because of this, EMWA's outreach for its freelancing members includes various online resources, as well as in-person programs during the conferences and some such. And of course, all this is only possible when there's member participation. So we encourage it at all levels, and hopefully it will be mutually beneficial for us. Acknowledgements to the EMWA Executive Committee. Of course, they have had our backs for a number of years, including budgets and stuff, some such, and they've supported us. If I recall correctly, the FBF used to be only about an hour-long event, and now it goes on for more than an hour and a half. And of course, this involves a certain amount of cost for the venue and some such. But they have supported us all throughout, no matter what initiatives we have had. And thanks to them. The fellow members of the FBG subcommittee, and yes, as I said earlier, this is a fantastic bunch of freelancers to work with and come up with plenty of ideas and initiatives. And of course, the biggest advantage I have found in having the subcommittee is sharing the burden of work. And of course, thanks to the EPDC as well as the webinar team, Laura and Carolina, who are doing a fabulous job of this. And yes, so that will be all from me, and I will now take your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Satyen. So if anybody wants to raise their hand, they should have a button in their control panel to raise their hand. They can ask a question orally, or you can write it down. So far,
everything was crystal clear. They have no questions.
Well, I have a question here. It's Laura talking.
Okay, Laura, go on.
I was just wondering, Satyen, do you already know the topics that will be covered in next Freelance Business Forum in Warsaw?
No, we don't, not yet. What we do is we usually leave a message on EMWA's online LinkedIn page, inviting people to come up with, to suggest any topics. But by and large, it has been topics that the subcommittee kind of shortlists and discusses and things like this. This might be more important.
Okay.
And at this point, I would also like to say, if anybody's attending the the Warsaw conference this autumn and attending the FBF, if you put your name down, if you want to be a table leader, then please do drop us a line.
Okay, and we do have some questions now, Satyen. Apart from the Freelance Directory, is there any other way of finding out who else is an EMWA member in your area or in somebody's particular area?
Besides the Freelance Directory, then it's just a good old-fashioned way of being at the conference and networking. Unfortunately, and it's the network that you build, so you perhaps say, know somebody in Germany. That's what I think it worked for me. And then I think LinkedIn also suggests to you those in and around your area. But actively looking for those who are around you, I don't think there's any such list that exists.
Yes, no, in my experience, it was networking and being in the social events and everything, and that's how I actually met some people from my area. So that's right. Now, somebody else is asking how to get started And any tips on finding clients?
How to get started. In the freelance business, again, this is a personal opinion. It all depends. It's because a lot of people, as I said, get into freelancing after they have worked for a company or so for a little bit. And in most cases, they inherit the company when they become freelancers. As to how to get more freelance work or newer clients, in your downtime, I would say look at the number of the companies that are advertised on EMWA's website, or just Google search for medical writing companies in and around the area, and just drop them a line. I mean, it's basically like that. But in freelance writing, most of the work comes through referrals. I know that it's perhaps a little harder on the continent against being in the UK. The UK has a lot of medical writing agencies, but I dare say that they would have local freelancers working for them because sometimes they have requirements of the freelancer coming to the office. So it's perhaps not easy for them to say okay to a freelancer who's based in Germany or elsewhere. Yeah, so as I said, the thing is, the more you network, the more you create, the more visibility you create for yourself.
Yep.
And then you start contacting people and telling them, especially those who have been in EMWA for long, they have other contacts. And once you get in touch with these people and stay on it, it automatically falls in place. I do recall very well when my first year of freelancing was, I did have a lot of doubts. I was like, was this right for me? Because at that point I had one client the work was not regular. But I persisted, I kept on, I started building my network at EMWA conferences, and then lo and behold, here I am in the top brackets in number of hours per week that I work. Yeah, so that's how it happens.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Now we have another one. Does EMWA provide any training other than workshops at the conferences?
There are workshops that are not for credit and that are free. So something like Introduction to Medical Writing is a workshop that's free of cost, and that any attendee is free to attend it. Did I just say that? That wasn't okay. So it's open to all, but there are certain workshops that are not for credit and that are that do not cost to be a part of. Besides that, at EMWA conferences, I think that's about it. You have your free workshops and you have your paid workshops, which are in two different, your basic and advanced. Yeah.
And Satyan, if
Does
I
that
may
answer the
add,
question?
well, we'll see. But the thing is, if I may add, if you're attending the workshops, you're already a member. So you can always go into the journal, which is searchable, and you can access all the issues. There is the webinar archive. We have 2 or 3 years worth of, or more, worth of webinars there that all that is included in the membership. And if you're not a member and you're looking at the whole medical writing thing, there's a PDF of the Getting into Medical Writing available publicly.
Right.
We have another one. Where do freelancers network outside of EMWA meetings?
Where do freelancers network outside of EMWA meetings? Now, this is again, for those of you who are based in the UK, you perhaps know about it, and some of it's advertised even on the social media in the UK. And I think there was an article written not too long ago by someone based in the UK on doing local networking. So you kind of get in touch with fellow freelancers in that area, and then you meet once a month or once in 2 months or so. That concept has picked up quite a bit in the UK. And I dare say a little bit in France as well now, but not so successful in Germany. So as far as networking goes, it's face-to-face networking is of course at EMWA conferences, and then if you're made great friends with someone, then you can meet them on your own, I guess. But the two ways to interact with others is either on social media, which is LinkedIn, or on or at the EMWA conferences.
Okay, now I'm sending you a personal comment to you from somebody, and then I have another one that asked, what does one need to do as a table leader at the FBF during the EMWA conference?
Fabulous question. I love this. As a table leader, I mean, it's a bit of a misnomer, if I may. When we approach people to become table leaders, we just randomly select people from the list of attendees who are going to be there. What everybody thinks is that for an hour you're supposed to stand at the table and, you know, preach the choir. It's not so. The table leader's job is largely to facilitate the conversation around the table. So the way when we have our pre-chosen topics, which we then send to the table leaders who have been notified before the conference, and we say, okay, what topic would you like to discuss at your table? They pick one or two, a main topic and a couple of backup topics. And what happens then is once the table discussions start, it's just an icebreaker. The topic is really only an icebreaker. You could talk about it a little bit, but you can also move to other topics. You could just exchange recipes. The goal, as I said, is that it's interpersonal interaction. It's how you kind of get others involved in the discussion at your table. So basically, the table leader is a moderator who kind of goes to everybody around the table and kind of like, you know, share your stories. Come on, let's hear about where you're from. What do you do? What's your experience like? And that's what is really the table leader's job. And of course, at the end of the table discussion session, they have to sum up what they discussed at their table.
And I can attest to that because in my first EMWA conference, I was table leader. You guided me very well, Satyan, and it was really easy.
Thank you so much, Carolina. I remember that very well. And you did a fabulous job, as you do always.
Thank you. Now, oh, there was somebody with a raised hand here. There she is. I'm going to unmute her. Let's see. Soraya, you're unmuted now. There you go. You can go ahead.
Oh, hi, this is Suraya. Thank you for taking my question. It was a wonderful presentation, Satyan. Thank you for sharing all that you did. I have a question about, you know, getting started in medical writing itself. So you mentioned that it's advisable to work with a company before one, you know, moves on to become a freelancer. So what do you think is the best, you know, platform for such training? A CRO or a, you know, big pharma company? What in
okay. Here's what I say for those, and I did not mention it in my talk earlier, largely because this talk was supposed to be about freelancers. EMWA runs what's called an internship forum in the spring conference in May. And what the internship forum does is it's essentially for newbies, for those who are wanting to get into the field of medical writing. It kind of pairs them up. So it's sort of like a job hunt, if you may say. You have your prospective medical writing companies who are at the venue, and then you have sort of these candidates or these people who are interested in, who are newbies, who then go and talk to each and every one of them, and some of them could even be offered 6-month internships or so, sometimes, depending on which company is doing that. And I think that has been one of the most successful programs in recent times. Because, yes, from what I know the person who, he's also a freelancer, he's in charge of the internship forum. And they have been doing quite well. in placing quite a few people who have had zero experience but an interest and an appropriate background in with these short-term practicums or internships where they kind of, got to know the ropes, learn the ropes a little bit.
Right. So I have, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I have another question to follow that one.
Sure.
For your overview of the internship possibilities, I have heard from other sources that yes, internships are a good opportunity to train on about what the role involves and so on, and the skills that one needs to do it well. But what happens to the salary negotiation post internship, either in that company or in another one? How much does it impact? Because internship, the salaries will not be on par of what they would.
No, you'd probably get a stipend. Yes, you probably get a stipend, and that's why. And I think you have 6 months or whatever time period your internship runs into, to create the kind of impression, to learn as much as you can, to make yourself as indispensable as you can. And I think from there starts the salary negotiation part. It's not something I am doing at all at the moment. Mine being more on a different line of negotiating rates for a project, but it's no different in terms of how much you can offer. So during your internship, if you create a kind of impression that you are a potential asset for the company, then they would consider the salary should not be a problem then. And I think salaries all over Europe as such are not terribly different from each other country-wise, and they are quite fair.
Right. Thank you for resting that doubt.
Thank you, Soraya. I'll mute you now, okay?
Yeah. Thank you.
Satyen, we have another question. What is the minimum experience you need to be a freelance writer?
Ooh, what's the minimum experience? Could be nothing. Because freelancing is always a choice that you make yourself. And to share this with you, what would you consider as an adequate experience? This is something I faced when I was looking for medical writing jobs, not as a freelancer, looking for jobs. At that point, I already had about 4 years of experience and yet was not finding luck. So what would you consider as a minimum experience that's required for freelancing? If you're good at your job, there are people who have just come out of academia and started swimming in deep water, and they are managing fine. It all depends on, I think, the quality of services you provide. Yes, it's getting your first client might be hard when you don't have much of an experience. But if you do find a client and then carry on and do a fabulous job, I know somebody who collaborated with me. I had a project which I outsourced to this person, and this person did an absolutely fabulous job, and they had almost no experience. The whole thing I think is very important is writing skills. Writing is very, very underrated. We may have all the knowledge, we may have all the experience in sciences, but I'm sure you'll agree with me that not everybody is good at communication. And that, I think, is the biggest drawback. You can improve the science in a manuscript, for example, but the language, that's the hard part for most people.
Satyen, one of the things that they mentioned in the Introduction to Medical Writing Forum and in the internship one that I was at this spring was also think about everything you've written when you were a student in your jobs. What did you have to write? And did you ever publish anything, even if it was, I don't know, in an article in the journal from your school or something like that? To put, and that's you know, it's who's the editor of EMWA, the journal?
Phil Leventhal.
Yes, Phil said, and Ellen Baldwin, and also the director of St. Gilles. They're all, you know, wonderful people. It's not me just inventing this stuff, you know.
It's also about, you know, creating a, even if you haven't, for example, when I mentioned Emma's journal, that's a good opportunity for you to write something for, because you can then show a sample of your writing to someone. If it's been published, you can show it to your potential client, and most of them will ask you for it. If you're a newbie, most of them will make you do a writing test anyhow.
Yes.
My advice is, if you have downtime, you know, just blog, just write something, just, you know, get that habit of writing, because I think that is what helps one keep in shape as far as medical writing goes. That's my personal opinion, though.
Yes. Now there's another one. How easy is the transition of moving into freelancing in UK, considering I have experience with pharmaceutical companies abroad as a medical writer, similar to medcoms? Is it better to start off with agencies, or you can consider freelancing alone as a starter?
Now, this is a very UK specific question, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, say, well, unfortunately, I'm based in Germany, so I wouldn't be able to. I can't say anything from my personal experience, but from what I've heard from those freelancing colleagues of mine who are based in the UK, it's a hit or miss. You could perhaps, I mean, there are some agencies which have a good reputation. If you get a chance with them, that's always great. But on the other hand, you could also end up with an agency that's not quite there. But you got to kind of think about it in one way: is it after all going to be an investment? If you're going to put your time in, would you rather not do something as against doing something for perhaps even a little lesser rate than what you'd get? If it helps add to your CV, if it helps add to your experience, then it's an investment. If not, then you're better off not taking it and waiting for a better opportunity.
Yeah. Okay, next. Networking outside of meetings. In the Netherlands, oh, this is not a question, somebody contributing. It's she's saying that they have a group, a local network in the Netherlands, if anybody is interested.
Jackie Johnson started that thing, I think, 2 years back or so. And yeah, she advertises on social media as well, on LinkedIn. And yeah, that's another example of someone who just came out of academia and while doing postdoc decided to start her own consultancy in the Netherlands. And yes, so for Netherlands is another country where a lot of local networking happens, I presume.
Yes. Now, are there any training workshops to improve IT skills like Excel, Word, and PowerPoint?
Workshops. I think for that you probably have to consult the EMWA website, which gives a list of all the courses, of all the workshops that are available. I know that there are some. I can't recall the exact names, but I think there are some which give you these tips. I think EMWA also runs during the spring conference. There's a short program, which is not for credit again, which is called Rise and Shine IT something.
Yes, that was really good. Yeah.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it? So yeah, it was an initiative. I think Wendy Kingdom proposed it a few years back, and then it got introduced. I think Jackie is also involved with that one.
I think so.
Jackie and Wendy look after it, and it's offered there, and it's a short program. It's basically just, you know, introduction to various different IT things. For example, like using Mendeley or so as a reference software. And yeah, so there are workshops that are paid. There are some things that are sort of for free.
There's also in the archive a couple of webinars on how to make Word behave as it should.
Aha, yes. Yeah. Who was it who did that? Was it?
I don't remember.
It wasn't
But
Andrea
it's
Rossi, was it?
fantastic because she's working in Word as she's doing the webinar. So you can see her doing the things in front of you.
Oh, fabulous.
Yeah.
Fabulous.
Now, somebody else is saying, thank you for a very informative presentations. She's an EMWA member, recently based in Switzerland, having freelancing for 7 years. Is really keen on gaining experience in regulatory, but clients are quite adamant about hiring writers without this experience. She finds it very frustrating because, as you mentioned, we gain most of our knowledge through hands-on work. And the question is, there are the workshops, but she's asking, are there any other channels that you could suggest to get more popularity in this area of medical writing?
So, I mean, it's hard to give a general answer to this, simply because I'm not aware of how far you have reached out, whether you have written to companies. For regulatory writing, again, there are some agencies or medical writing companies, you may call them, that do this kind of that give work to freelancers for regulatory projects. I think there is one in Switzerland as well, but it would be good if, and these are the kind of networks you build at conferences. I recently met somebody who has his own company in Switzerland who does regulatory writing and does farm out to freelancers. So again, to put it short, the answer would be to just keep trying, just keep applying, just keep looking at online where you have these things advertised on different websites or so, and then just keep applying. But by and far from my experience, from what I recall, it just seems to be a trend of some sort that recruiters will put an ad out for somebody with 4 years of experience and then end up hiring somebody with 10 years of experience. That's a hit or miss, really.
Yes.
The other thing is you could probably also write to freelance medical writers who are involved actively in doing regulatory writing and get in touch with them and see if you could be, if they would ever want to work with a freelancer, someone without experience, and kind of do a bit of mentoring. I think there is Sarah Tilley. Is Sarah here? I think she had joined in for the workshop. I think Sarah.
Sarah. No, she's not here.
Sarah Tilley's not there. Well, she worked for a number of years for Synopsis, and then she started her own freelance consultancy last year. She's got plenty of experience in regulatory writing. So you may want to kind of get in touch with her on LinkedIn or any other way. And as I said, networking is the key in freelancing. You get to learn a lot from others. You get tips and advice from others. So that might be one helpful avenue.
Yes, I think so. Also, let me see. Do you know of any freelance remote internships available to non-European EMWA members?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that, please?
If you know of any freelance and remote internships available to non-European EMWA members.
What is freelance and what? I couldn't get the second word.
Well, basically remote, home-based.
Oh, remote internships, not to my knowledge.
Yes, and believe me, I did search. I didn't find anything.
If you're going to be an intern, it's always going to be hands-on, isn't it? So you will have to be at the office to learn, to talk, to interact with those who are providing the internship. So I do not think the idea of remote internship ever was even floated. But I understand the dilemma of somebody who is not from the EU, and then you have different immigration and visa rules that perhaps preclude you from coming here for an internship, and it will be borne in mind by the recruiters.
Yes, and this person asked about that, and I also answered her privately already with what I could help her with. Now, we have another one. When negotiating rates with clients, do you give them an hourly rate? Okay, hold on. You give them an hourly rate, but do you also give them an overall estimate of cost for a project? If so, how do you calculate this?
Well, again, pricing is it's subjective. Some of us work for per project basis. Sometimes the client prefers that because they know upfront how much it would cost them. Some clients are okay with per hour, but when you're doing that, you also have to give them an estimate of how many hours you think it's going to cost. And one thing is for sure, the client knows exactly how much time it will take. If they can get you to agree for lesser number of hours, then that's something they will try to do because it saves them money. On the other hand, I would say it's finding the right balance is not that easy, which is why you look at what the survey results are, for example, and it says that, you know, if you're doing regulatory writing, then you charge a minimum of about 100, 125 euros per hour. And how many hours? Then I think there are online resources that also give you a ballpark estimate. So if you are going to write a manuscript for your client, if the client asks you, okay, what's going to be your per hour rate and how many hours do you think it would take? Oh, well, a manuscript roughly would take you about 80 hours or so. And for manuscripts, the rate, there's a huge variation in the rates, because you can have somebody who's willing to do it for 20, 25 euros an hour, and there could be the standard rates of about 70 euros an hour. So it all depends on what your relationship with the client is. The best advice would be to do some research. And as I said, the number of hours required, the rates, you already have those figures in your hand, and make a pitch. If it's too much for the client, they will come back and let you know that, sorry, this is a little too much. Are you willing to go down? So it's always safe to be on the higher side than the lower side, because if you're underestimating the amount of either your rate or the number of hours, the client doesn't care. They will say, yes, fine, because it works in their budget fabulously.
Okay. Will you answer one last question, Satyan?
Yes. Okay.
Do you know any tips or guidelines to find online which have standard SOPs for writing various manuscripts?
Standard tips for writing. I think you have, as I said, on the Freelance Resource Center, there have been plenty of these guidelines. So you have the EMWA guidelines and some such. But I think these are also easily found on Google nowadays, because everything is shared so freely.
You know what? I can add something here. Where is the Equator Network? I'm going to type it, the link. That's the place that Andrea Rossi, who does the workshop on guidelines, told us about. I'm going to send it to everybody because it's an excellent resource. I mean, that's public anyway. That might help, right?
Yeah, there you go.
Now, thank you so much for answering all of these questions, Satyan, and all your tips. Now, on behalf of EMWA, we thank everyone for joining us today. and we hope you find this information useful and valuable and that you enjoy the initiative.